Welcome to Smart Parents, Successful Students, the podcast that helps parents like you guide your children toward academic confidence and success. I'm your host, Helen Panos, and I'm here to share expert tips, proven strategies, and inspiring stories that make the journey to school success a little smoother for both you and your student. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Smart Parents, Successful Students podcast. I am your host, Helen Panos. I am speaking to you today about the mid-year, check, I'd call it, and whether your child's on track or not. This is a good time to find that out. Mid-year of any semester is a great time to check in. Maybe right before the mid-year would be even much better. So we know that mid-year typically, or mid-semester, I'd like to call it, sneaks up on families. And this is usually when parents realize something is off with their child. They're maybe on the computer more or they're sleeping more, but you're not seeing them actively doing their work. So grades, you check the grades on the system and you're like, okay, they're fine. They're not too bad. Or maybe you're not checking them and you depend on, especially a teenager, to be independent and to, check on them themselves and then maybe come to you and discuss things that might not be working for them. But effort, motivation, or stress, maybe you notice these things, maybe any of those things have changed. And it's like after the 4-week report card has already come through for the semester, and then you're like, whoa, now what's happening? Seems something's off a little bit because you know your child. But the mid-year is not a failure point. It's more of a reset point. So I want to, make that very clear. It's more of a reset point, not failure. So don't look at it that way. You still have time to get your child caught up. We've seen this so many times. I can think of a time where we had a 4.0 student out of a North Metro Atlanta area county, and she is taking a French 3 class, and it was done through Georgia Virtual. So what happens when you take a class like that? Usually they're pretty accelerated versus taking it at the school or in the school system. So she had taken it, and I guess, maybe it was just getting too stressful for her. There were a lot of assignments involved in it, a lot of modules, quizzes, tests that are timed, and pretty much she shut down. My tutor, we got the call early November. This is all due December 9th. And we went into the system and saw that she hasn't done anything since the end of September, and her teacher was emailing her, but she wasn't responding. She was just ignoring it. So we got in there, helped her pretty much tutor 4 days a week so we could get her out of I think she had a 42 or lower, from a bad situation into at least a C would have been nice. Well, I have great news. Not only did I get her an extended time for testing, which she needed due to some medical issues, and we also got her to a B in the French class, which is really exciting. So she really worked harder. So yes, mid-year, things can still happen. Maybe not as much the last 3 weeks of school. If you're trying to get help, then it's a little bit too late then. So why mid-year is a sweet spot for change? At the beginning of the year, we don't really have enough data. As a matter of fact, I remember when I was teaching, we'd send out these 4.5 report cards, and parents would go, well, why are they failing? And a lot of times it would be because they've only taken one quiz, had a couple classwork assignments. None of that weighs that much. It's really your tests that weigh more in the syllabus and in the class. So that's why we don't get too nervous about that first 4.5 weeks. But again, if you're seeing some skills that look like they're lacking, or kids moping around at home, then time to really focus in on what might be happening. But at the end of the year, it's often too late to wait. Like I said, if you call us, it's early December or, early May, and they're about to take finals, it may be difficult to do too much about it. We could probably help with that test somewhat and hope for the best, but it puts us in a very awkward situation. Mid-year is when patterns become visible. Definitely, because by the 9th week, they've had several tests, 2 or 3, probably several quizzes, classwork assignments, things like that, probably at least a project. So yeah, mid-year is when the patterns become visible, or mid-term, mid-semester. You still have time to teach skills, not just react. So when it's mid-semester, you still have time to teach some skills that they need, and you're not just reacting to the fact that they're not going to do well. So mid-year is where the habits show up. Now, what parents should usually focus on and why it's a missing point that people don't get. So let's talk about, most parents immediately look at grades. That's where they go first. How many people agree with that? Raise your hand. Okay. So then the missing assignments, then consequences usually are given to the child for not doing something. And then, but grades don't tell us why things are happening, to be honest. It's just a snapshot. I know a lot of times parents will call me, and the actual assessments that they're taking, like a Georgia Milestones or a MAP test, something like that, that's more standardized, they don't do well on. But they can tell me they're making A's or B's in the classroom. So definitely, missing assignments, if they're not getting them done, maybe there needs to be some consequence to that. Grades are the smoke, not the fire. And then another one for you is, the fire is usually systems, habits, or overwhelm. Typically, it's got something to do with one of these. If it's systems, it may be the technology and the way they're loading it up, or they can't load it up, or they just don't know how to use the technology to submit their work. Maybe it's going to take a tutor or somebody else to sit down with that child and figure it out, or a teacher or counselor perhaps. Habits, definitely, that always seems to be a problem, especially with teens, because these habits become very important, especially if a teen's very busy with sports and other things that they're doing. The overwhelm, yes, that's always there too. A lot of times people will kind of cover that up outside, and you don't see it from the outside, but it's more internal. So let's look for, first of all, for academic patterns. Here's some things to look for. One low grade doesn't mean much, okay? Patterns across classes is what matters. You seeing them not doing well in math and in science, maybe physics and algebra class. Well, your science class needs a good solid math background for the child to do well in the science. Not every science, but a good number of them. Mm-hmm. Is the struggle showing up in the same way? Ask yourself that, parents. Is it showing up in the same way? Like, again, through tests, through writing as well, through homework completion, or is it only the tests? Because I could suggest that what might be happening is they are missing study skills. They're not studying. They have no habits to study. And then they think parents would think it's a content issue and that they don't understand something, but it's more of a skill issue. And also possibly it's related to executive functioning skills. So patterns tell us whether this is a skill gap or a strategy gap. So again, patterns are going to tell us whether this is a skill gap or a strategy gap or content gap, I call it. So here's an example. If your child understands the material but can't turn the work in, because I always ask this question, are they understanding the material, or is it they're just not turning in the work, or they're not doing the work, or they're not coming home to study? So if your child understands the material but can't turn work in, that's not an academic problem. That's actually a habit. Or there could be some other reason why they're not turning in, which we would all have to find out. Talking point 2. Let's talk about this. Habits matter more than intelligence. Habits matter more than intelligence. Yep. That's true. By mid-year, the natural ability isn't enough. If they have just some natural ability, they're able to get around that. They keep using that at the beginning, not too bad. It's when more things get thrown at them, harder curriculum, then it starts to become a problem. So there is where executive function skills matter. This is where it all matters. The natural ability isn't going to be enough. That's when the executive functioning coaching needs to step in. So you got time management, planning, and follow through carry the students. Again, these are really important skills to have. Time management, planning, and follow through. That's what carries your students. If they're missing any of these three, that's a problem. Common signs that you'll see that you might need to pay attention to during mid-year and before. Starting late, meaning starting their work late. Underestimating time. Oh, whoops. I thought it was going to only take me 30 minutes to do that homework, but it took me like 2 hours. And they got to need to, allow enough time for the math. That tends to take the longest. Disorganized materials. Do you see any disorganized materials? That would be a problem. Relying on reminders. Or a reminder that doesn't really work for the child because there are other kinds of reminders other than timers. So smart students struggle when systems break down. Yeah, they don't really have a good enough system, and that's now starting to break down because they're getting busier or they have added a sport or anything like this. So here's another, number 3, motivation is usually a symptom. All right, so parents often say, my child just isn't motivated. Motivation usually drops when students feel overwhelmed or unsuccessful. So the motivation will show up when the students are feeling overwhelmed or unsuccessful. Pressure doesn't create motivation, but clarity does. Again, pressure doesn't create motivation. Clarity does. And a couple more for you. Motivation follows confidence. Confidence comes from knowing what to do next. And talking point 4, stress is data. It's not drama. So stress shows up mid-year. Kids may not say, I'm stressed. You just have to kind of watch their behavior. They show it through avoidance, in their irritability, or a shutdown. I've seen this before, even in adults. So if stress is data, not drama, then just be aware of these talking points of they show it through avoidance, irritability, or shutdown. Now, normalizing, you could say this isn't weakness, it's information. So you can use those. If your child is avoiding work, something feels too heavy. So, how parents should start the conversation with their child. The goal isn't to lecture, it's to understand. And curiosity lowers defenses, which is good. You can use any of these if you like to borrow any of these lines. What feels hardest right now? You can ask your child. What takes the most energy? And where do you feel stuck? A lot of times when I'm talking to parents, I ask these questions anyhow. I'm like, well, what makes you think it's only about his grades? It could be about testing, things like this. So it's good to ask them what feels hard right now, what's taking most of your energy away, and where do you feel stuck? Now, avoid fixing immediately. You don't want to do that. Comparing siblings, please do not do that. Threatening like mid-conversations, not a good idea. So a simple mid-year reset. You don't fix everything at once. You pick one focus. You fix the system, not the child. And here's some examples. 1 weekly planning check-in. Do that. Do it on Sundays. I know parents that do it on Sundays. 1 habit to improve. That could be a personal habit or otherwise. 1 support added before consequences. So what was the support that you got before the consequences happen? Small systems create big change. So in order to close with some reassurance and action, midyear doesn't define the year. It just shapes the finish. And progress beats perfection. And I want to, invite you to download my SMART Goal Planner sheet if you'd like to get that. It's going to be in. I actually have a podcast on SMART Goals, so it will be in there. I will also download it to here too. But it's a good idea to have some goals in place before you start off and kick off the new year. So I'd like to, invite you to have a strategy session call with me to listen to the next executive functioning focused activity or skill that they need to work on. So would love to have you. Again, reach out at helen@dynamislearningacademy.com, or you can text us at our business line 770-282-9931. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to Smart Parents Successful Students podcast. If you found today's episode insightful, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out our YouTube channel for even more tips to help your student thrive. Until next time, keep guiding your children towards success.